So you're a Seattle native, the Seahawks fan?
Big Seahawks fan, really excited to win the Super Bowl. So it's been a good year for us.
How will you explain your role to an 8-year-old kid?
Oh goodness, well we talk about the internet and just how content can be shared on the internet.
Looking at the size of 400 million SMBs, the GDP contribution of more than 45%, and 98% of all the businesses are the SMBs. How do you see the segment, what it is today versus 3 years back?
I think one of the most interesting market dynamics in SMB is that, first of all, they can be seen as technology laggards because they're not going to adopt something unless it truly serves them and their end customers right there in that minute. But the flip side of that is when there is a technology that does bring real business value, they're able to adopt it overnight, and they can actually leapfrog enterprises in that speed of adoption.
So you believe that AI is fixing the SMB problems in today's world, and definitely it will accelerate going forward as well.
I think it has the potential to fix them, right? I still think we're very, very early. The trajectory is incredible. I think we're still just scratching the surface. I would stop short of saying, okay, we can all go home now, SMB problem is solved, AI is here. It's going to take a long, hard work over the next 10 years to really get to that place.
Hi, welcome to another Zinnov Podcast series. I'm Rajat Kohli, partner at Zinnov. And today is a very interesting conversation I'm going to have with a senior leader from the platform companies. We're talking about one of the segments which is debated, misunderstood, but frankly, it is one of the key segments for the technology adoption. We are going to talk about SMBs, small, medium businesses. And today with me, I have a leader who's in this industry for many years, which brings the strategy, the technology, and the SMB market dynamics together. Welcome to the podcast, Kristine Henley.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, we are super excited to have this conversation. Before we get into those tough questions, it'll be good to understand who you are, what is your role, and why SMB.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, my name is Kristine Henley. I'm actually a Seattle native, so born and raised here. So Amazon, Microsoft are my local companies, which explains a lot about the career. I currently am at Amazon Web Services. I currently lead our public sector go-to-market with partners, but I previously was leading our SMB global go-to-market through our partners.
Wow, so you're a Seattle native, the Seahawks fan?
Big Seahawks fan, really excited to win the Super Bowl. So it's been a good year for us. Mariners made it pretty far too, so
very true.
We're happy over here.
So before we get into those market dynamics, Kristine, wanted to understand, and I want to start somewhere personal, why SMB segment that you picked up?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've always been really passionate about small and medium businesses, and that's partly because both sets of my grandparents were small business owners.
Oh, okay.
So I really grew up in that dynamic. I have some really early childhood memories of sitting in the main office of our cab company, kind of listening to dispatch and the chaos around me and doing little odd jobs and just watching my family wear so many hats around the business. Every day you're interacting with a small business, whether that's a local market or a dentist office or your hair cutter. So it's incredible to be a part of that community and to do anything to serve them.
That's very interesting. So you bring that business dynamics for sure. And as you said, that it's one of the biggest economy that everyone is going after. Looking at the size of 400 million SMBs, the GDP contribution of more than 45%, and 98% of all the businesses are the SMBs. How do you see the segment, what it is today versus 3 years back?
Goodness, I think one of the most interesting market dynamics in SMB is that, first of all, they can be seen as technology laggards because they're not going to adopt something unless it truly serves them and their end customers right there in that minute. But the flip side of that is when there is a technology that does bring real business value, they're able to adopt it overnight. And they can actually leapfrog enterprises in that speed of adoption. And so that's one of the things I believe we're seeing today with AI, where AI is helping to automate and augment business processes and help these SMBs scale and deliver better customer outcomes. They're able to overnight move from an on-premise workload to an AI native SaaS application. And so that kind of speed is really changing how technology companies can interact with SMBs today in a way that, 3 years ago, it just wasn't the same dynamic.
Wow, that's interesting. If you look at the SMB segment, do they understand the technology really well, especially in today's world where the technology is advancing at a much faster pace? How do you see that?
First of all, you mentioned, 400 million companies, and I think that part about 45% of GDP is so critical because we think about SMBs as being small in revenue, but in aggregate, it's a huge portion of the economy. So one mistake I hear commonly is referring to SMBs almost as a monolith. Like within that 400 million businesses, you have every kind of business and segment and technology adoption and persona. And so, the answer to almost every question is going to be yes. Yes, they understand technology. No, they also don't understand the technology. It's really going to be about how you sub-segment. So we really see both sides of that market. So there are some small businesses where technology is very much at the core and center of what they do. And even though they're small, they are at the forefront of AI adoption, cloud adoption, you name it. But many, and I would say the preponderance of SMBs, no, they don't have a full-time IT staff. They don't understand the ins and outs of AI and how it works, or cloud and why move to cloud. They understand what's impactful to their business. So how are they handling customer service? How are they managing bookings? How are they managing inventory? So when you're working with them, it's really about translating technology into those business outcomes.
Awesome. So if I look at that from an SMB angle, what exactly they want from the ecosystem, which somehow is not delivered, or there's a mismatch, what their expectations is and how the technology companies, what they're delivering and how they're delivering.
One is really understanding the speed that the SMB can move and also the speed that they expect those results.
Okay.
Right? So you don't want to take an enterprise mindset in and do a proof of concept and then a slow, implementation rolling through each component of their company. They really want to see impact right away. So thinking more about maybe deploying one feature across the company and then adding more features if you need to phase it out, rather than deploying a proof of concept, tearing that up and starting over. So I think really just making sure that you're matching the speed of the outcome to the speed that the SMB really needs. That is a place I see the mismatch. Another aspect can be SMB is a very hyper-local market. When I refer to the community, as I mentioned, they're the people all around you that you interact with, and they also expect to interact with companies who are right there with them. And so sometimes I see a mismatch in global vendors trying to reach SMBs in local markets with a very globalized approach.
Right.
So I think really being thoughtful about how you're distilling your message and your approach, and then even your implementation resources to give that local experience.
And when we look at from a local experience, do you talk about the industry? Do you talk about the geo? Or do you talk about even what specific use case that SMB is trying to solve? How you define the local flavor?
First and foremost, I would say it's the geo and all the way down to the city.
Okay.
I had a great experience.
Oh, that's a great point, even to the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I had great experiences, I would say India and Brazil as well, right? Really opened my mind of, I was in Sao Paulo, Brazil, just learning about how different the market is in Minas Gerais, a few miles away, right, from Sao Paulo, or in India where they talk about tier 1 versus tier 2, tier 3 cities. And there's 16 different languages across India.
Right.
So that's when I say hyper local, in that it really breaks the enterprise convention of saying geo, country, and you have to get down to portion of the country, city of the country, culture of the person running the business in that city. So that is what I would say is the predominant force. You really need to be able to speak in terms that SMB owner is going to understand. Secondarily, I would say industry.
Okay.
So both market research and I would say personal experience really shows us that SMBs first identify with their industry and then as a small business.
Okay.
Meaning if you're a small dentist office, you're going to look for healthcare solutions
Yes.
and then filter down to small dentist office healthcare solutions.
Yes.
You're not going to SMB solutions and then choosing healthcare. See, so it's first of all, that local language, local presence, local currency, and then secondly, industry and really making sure you're speaking to the business problems and the customers that those SMBs serve. What I advise is oftentimes we can't verticalize our actual solutions into SMB.
Yes.
So it's more of a translation layer. Your solution might be the same. Maybe it's document processing, but you need to speak about that for that local dentist with examples of how other dentist offices have used automated document processing. If you're working with a restaurant, how have they used automated document processing in the retail and restaurant industry, right? So just having that translation layer, so it really helps that SMB understand why and how this technology can help them.
That's a great point, Kristine. As you mentioned, the local flavor matters a lot and articulate that business story. How the platform companies like Amazon Web Services are putting that messaging to the ecosystem. When I say the ecosystem, these are the partners, the distributors, the MSPs, which are taking that solution and the outcome to the customers. How are you working with this indirect model?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say platform companies, but I see it even from ISV vendors.
Sure.
Almost everyone has a kind of partner-led approach to reaching SMBs because exactly that. How are you going to get hyper-local without having a strong network of partners that are local that you can work with? So that's a very common approach. And it also brings challenges because how do you ensure consistency of messaging, quality of delivery of your product through this network of partners? And I would say we've learned a lot over the years at AWS as well. I mean, one approach we initially started with was like, let's really enable these partners with a turnkey solution.
Okay.
We'll create something really packaged, really easy to deploy, really simple for the SMB to understand, and we'll push it out through the partner network and magic will happen.
Sure.
We didn't sell a thing. When we bundled it together, we found that, look, I like to say SMB is not simple business.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the complexity of an enterprise customer at a broader scale and a smaller entity. And so no surprise, but all these SMBs didn't need the exact same package. In fact, they all needed something customized to their own business.
Right.
So for example, ISV vendors that work together, well, maybe they need all three systems. They need, an ERP system, a CRM system, and, an accounting system. But any given SMB might have one of those,
right,
or two of those. So they don't necessarily want to buy all three at once. They need something that's flexible, that's going to work with them. Even if they get to all three eventually, that might be on different timelines. We learned very quickly that it's about packaging the 80% or packaging your selling process and your core messaging and allowing for that 20% of variation at the edge. So how do we enable that partner network on the core value proposition, the 80% of the solution build, but then empower them to make sure they're differentiating that last 20% and customizing it to the end customer.
So are you saying that SMBs prefer the point solutions or they're moving towards a platform story also? Because there's a low ACV. I'm sure that the closure cycle is at a faster compared to the enterprises. But where do you see, is it really an attractive, truly business for the platform companies? Where do you see that?
Absolutely. Well, I've seen IDC projections that say SMB cloud spend will reach over $500 billion by 2027. Mm-hmm. So I think the first answer is absolutely, it's incredibly attractive. Yeah. So one benefit that SMBs have is they can actually use the best in class of every solution. So just like I was explaining why bundling doesn't always work out, SMBs have that luxury to say, why would I use a less attractive product to me where I'm at in my market? I can simply go and buy 30 different SaaS solutions that are each best in class. Whereas an enterprise might have central governance, procurement. So they might tend towards, if you're going to sell me 3 things, it's an easier procurement cycle, I'll do it. SMBs don't need to do that. So absolutely, they want always best in class, what's really tailored to their needs. That said, we've also seen SMBs on average today, small companies are using over 18 different applications.
Okay.
And medium businesses are using over 35 different applications just to run their business. I mean, think about the last time, you went to the doctor's office, right? And you saw the receptionist sitting there entering all your information in one app and then pulling up another app and re-entering it into that app and then pulling up another one and checking on something there, right? So they're having to manage across so many different applications. And I truly believe there's a huge opportunity in front of us to build more connectors and more cross-application platform capability. How do you run security across all those applications? How do you integrate those applications? How do you have AI agents from those applications that speak to each other and really simplify that SMB, business process automation step? And so I see like marketplaces, for example, being a huge opportunity. We do see SMBs increasing their marketplace spend.
Okay.
I believe right now it's on average like 22% of SMB transactions are going through marketplaces. And to me, 22%. I would just say, yeah, and that's up over the last year, but it's still like a quarter, right? And if I had to make a bold prediction, I would say in the next 3 years, we absolutely flip that and 80% of SMB transactions go through marketplaces because you really have that ability then to buy all those applications you need, but in one place with similar, comparison and peer review and procurement process. So there's a huge value proposition to SMBs in platforms and in marketplaces that I think hasn't yet reached them.
Wow, that's very interesting. That number will increase. It's a tough question, and I want to be honest. You want to talk like what is the reality? You mentioned about the number. Opportunity is a $500 billion in the SMB.
Yeah.
If the leader in your organization says that we need to accelerate, we need to do it in half of the time what it is projected, what will be your strategy?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you have to assess where you're at. So if you want to accelerate, where are you today? What's your trajectory today? I would say some common mistakes I've seen. I've had vendors, ISVs call me and ask for advice on SMB targeting.
Really? They call and ask?
Absolutely. I'm happy to help. But the first thing I ask them is, how do you define SMB? Because there is no universal definition, right? Every company actually has their
different
own definition. And so I ask them that question, and it's very telling, their answer. Sometimes they tell me, my leadership told me it's like everybody we're not selling to today. Right. So I see a lot of that. I see a lot of like, we have an enterprise and vertical solution there, and then SMB is code word for everything else. So if you're in an everything else strategy, it's going to be really hard to accelerate.
Got it.
Right. You're being opportunistic. So the first thing is be very, very targeted. We just talked about the breadth, right? 98% of all businesses. So which ones are you saying you want to accelerate your go-to-market with? Which cities, which verticals, which solution areas? So once you've drilled into, okay, I have a plan, I know where my biggest addressable market is within the SMB. Now you need a very clear partner strategy. And I would say the biggest accelerant you could bring in right now is AI. In a very big way. In fact, we have a program I developed at AWS that actually co-funds our partners to buy AI applications to use in their selling cycle to SMB, because that's how much I believe the technology is helping us. So at each stage, how are you bringing automation and AI? Because the faster you can deliver, not only is it faster revenue to you, so that provides but it also delivers that business outcome to the SMBs at the speed that they want that business outcome. So one of the biggest deal killers that I see is actually the vendor's internal approval processes.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, if you want to do a migration for an SMB from a different vendor to your solution, and to get that funding, you need to go back and get approvals. and that approval process takes you 2 to 3 weeks, that SMB may have moved on. And that's where I see like most of the companies that I've worked with that are really stellar at selling an SMB and are seeing, $100 million of revenue from SMB segment, they actually are very intentional and would call SMB a core component of their business strategy. And so they build their operating processes for that segment. So it may take 2 to 3 weeks to get an enterprise approval for a migration because it's a large amount of money. You need to vet the solution and you have that luxury of time.
Got it.
In SMB, you just need to consider it's a very small amount of money to approve to do that migration. So how do you create like an automated approvals process or a wallet for your partners to use, or empowering your sellers with a certain amount of budget that they can use? So really thinking about how do you prioritize speed over accuracy, but just keeping that cap on it so your risk is limited. These are smaller deals. So if you've miscalculated or if your seller gives more money than they should have,
right,
it's a small risk. And overall, it's going to pay back in the breadth and the speed.
That's interesting. And you touch upon the co-funding, right? That's one aspect that you spoke about. The other aspect is the co-sell. There's a lot of talk around the co-sell, and co-sell is built for the enterprises. What is the definition of co-sell specifically, or what it really work in the SMB segment? If you look at the co-sell definition, and do we need to redefine it?
Yes, that's absolutely, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think when you think about SMB, you have to redefine what co-sell means.
Yes.
And I think, one exciting thing that we've been able to pioneer at AWS, and we'll talk a little bit about what we learned from it, is we built a real partner-led selling motion. And so to do that, we created a new role in the company called a partner territory manager.
Okay.
And that seller holds quota, but they don't go deal by deal. They manage a whole territory of customers, which is typically geographically based. So back to the cities, right? So we have one of these territory managers for Sao Paulo and another one for Minas Gerais, right? And then they work with targeted partners. So they down select a few partners that want to play in the space, that have SMB solutions and strategy, and they plan a go-to-market strategy. That's like the messages that we put into market, the digital marketing strategy and campaigns, physical events campaigns, because that's a great way to show up where SMBs are at industry events, working with local chambers of commerce, for example. So these are events that you can reach hundreds of SMBs with just one investment, one event. So they plan and they co-sell at that level. Then when it comes to individual customer deals, completely hands off. We allow the partner, as I just mentioned, a good amount of trust. And we base the funding on the results overall for the quarter. So within that, the partner has complete freedom to close those deals at the speed that they need to be closed.
Got it.
Right? So that's just one example of how co-sell can look very different in the segment, that it's not at the qualified and tech validation stage. It's actually at the go-to-market stage. Which are the solutions that we're going to jointly prioritize? What's the right marketing message? The better together story around those solutions. So it's deep collaboration, but thinking about it a little differently. Another way I see strong co-sell happening is, again, with agents and AI, you can actually rapidly share information. So when you get to the place of being able to share real-time information between companies, hey, we've caught this market signal, and then your agent says, oh, here's everything we know about that customer, here's how we would kind of propensity score it. Then those two agents can surface to the respective sales teams. Is this a customer that requires, a human to come and lean in and support that deal? Or can we simply pass that information to the partner, and then now the partner has what they need to go close that deal? So that's another great way of co-sell doesn't have to be two account managers jointly on the phone or jointly flying to the customer office, right? It may look like two agents sharing information and then packaging that to the seller. So now they have a complete set of information from both vendors.
Interesting. As for our study, it came out that in the SMB world, and I think so you touched upon the industry associations going through that route, how important is the influencer ecosystem to crack the SMB market?
Huge. Still, the research I see is that still today, Peer review and peer feedback is number one aspect in the
Okay.
SMB buying decision.
Wow.
First. Second is industry reviews,
Okay.
industry, commentary, reviews, forums. So which is another way of saying peer feedback, right? So 1 and 2 already peer feedback. The third one I see is actually Google search. So they're just going on the internet and looking, local dentist office in Seattle, best CRM application,
Okay.
right? So again, a lot of times what's going to come up will be influencers and industry publications. So I really believe that's a great way. And the reason is we talked about you need to message and show up where the SMB is at.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about from that angle, that's why influencers are so critical, because they're there, they understand the SMB, they're typically similar companies in the same space. So the SMB can trust that they know the problem set, they know the customers, they understand what's needed. And when they say a solution works, the SMB can trust it's going to work for them.
Wow, that's very interesting. If you look at the SMB world, Kristine, and maybe you agree or disagree, what we know is that SMB is all about accounting software, productivity, CRM, the website hosting. How do you see the future, especially the AI is coming, right? The security layer is coming. Does that excite them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's exciting. And as I mentioned, I think SMBs are actually at the forefront of that AI adoption in a lot of ways. I think I disagree with the statement that it's about accounting software and CRM.
Sure.
I think those are important components, just like they are in enterprises. But SMBs have oftentimes even more unique business models. So you're also talking about like desalination companies, right? You're also talking about, I was just at an industry event and speaking with an SMB. All they do is trade weather futures.
Okay.
I personally, just to be honest, didn't know that industry existed.
Oh, wow.
But that's their entire business model. And they're very tech savvy. That they're entirely a technology company, right? So just because they're small doesn't mean they didn't use technology. I really see that AI can help them in so many ways. I think what's really important is to remember that SMB is a B2B sale.
Okay.
So always be thinking about who are the end customers of that business. That's what the SMB is getting up and thinking about. How do I serve my customers better, faster, higher quality, cheaper, at a better, more efficient rate for my company?
So you believe that AI is fixing the SMB problems in today's world, and definitely it will accelerate going forward as well.
I think it has the potential to fix them, right? I still think we're very, very early in the AI life cycle. If you just think about where we are today from 2-3 years ago,
Right.
The trajectory is incredible. I think we're still just scratching the surface of what it can do and also how widely it's implemented. So I would stop short of saying, okay, we can all go home now. SMB problem is solved. AI is here. It's going to take a long, hard work over the next 10 years to really get to that place. But I think we've already seen signals in what's the art of the possible. I think that's very exciting. And I think SMBs see that opportunity. In fact, we saw a rise in cloud interest from SMBs after ChatGPT debuted. Because now you have business owners who are starting to use AI on their phones in their personal lives. And they're saying, whoa, this is interesting. Now tell me more about what this technology could do for my business, right? So I do see AI playing a role in the future of the SMB. I think it won't solve all the problems. And I think we have to be very thoughtful around and very intentional around how we use it, how we think about responsible AI, how we put the right guardrails around it.
Okay.
And especially how we help the SMBs use it. We know that SMBs are very frequently targeted for cybersecurity attacks, right?
Oh, we see that in SMB world also?
Yes. SMBs face a huge cybersecurity risk, and over 50% of cyber attacks are on SMB companies. So this is very front and center. And we need to make sure that as we enable those companies to use AI or to use products, we're also enabling them with the right controls, the right security, the right training, to make sure that they're implementing the AI in a safe and secure and responsible way.
Got it. If you're sitting on the other side of the table as a strategic acquirer and evaluating the partners, the channel ecosystem, what kind of persona of the channel partner will excite you that you will invest in them or you walk away?
I think it would be exciting to me to see a partner who understands very deeply their target customers and where they're succeeding today and has a clear plan of how to expand upon that success, either adding markets and target customers or adding feature sets. So I think, again, I can't overstate that. I know it sounds very simple, but I actually talked to many, many vendors that are not yet very clear on where their success is coming from. Who is that ICP, right? That ideal customer persona that you are reaching today, where you're succeeding, and how do you grow and add new ICPs? So I think just having that real foundational, data-driven approach. If I was an investor,
Right.
I would be excited to see that on paper and really know that that company understands what's working and where their growth opportunities lie. And then I'd like to see in that growth plan, a real smart usage of partners and partner network. If you're reaching SMBs, distributors can provide you a reach and scale that's incredible. So really thinking through, what are those markets and segments they want to reach and how they're going to reach them. I would look for those things.
Interesting. The final question, how to ensure that SMBs are buying through the marketplace? What needs to be done?
Well, one, they have to know it's there. So how are you reaching
So it's about
them?
awareness.
Awareness and ease of use. I talk a lot about like meeting SMBs where they're at, right? So one example, again, sorry to steal from AWS, but I recently was really excited to see our launch of Marketplace storefronts.
Okay.
So we allow partners to create their own AWS Marketplace customized on their website. So now you're reaching more SMB customers because if they're already buying a product from one of these vendors, they can access additional third-party solutions through the marketplace on that vendor's webpage. Right?
Oh, they can.
So that's one way when I say get the word out, it's like, how are you really meeting SMBs where they're at? And also for vendors to think about, like that follow-on sale is really how you can become very profitable in the SMB space, right? And we talk a lot about profitability because you have to operate at such scale. And so a great way to do that is to make sure that you're selling more than just an initial product to the SMB. What's the second, third, fourth sale? We see much higher ticket sizes in that second and third sale than in the first one. So ensuring you're bringing the SMB to a marketplace is a great way to do that. If you've sold one thing, how are you introducing them to a marketplace full of second and third sales? And how are you potentially using AI to help surface the best fit next step for that SMB?
That's very interesting, Kristine. I think so. This was a wonderful conversation, a lot of insights to define the strategy and the playbook. I'm sure SMB is one segment which is untapped, but a significant opportunity is sitting over there for the platform companies like the Amazon Web Services and others. But there are many things that needs to be done to ensure that the speed accelerate and as well adoption also increases. For sure, as you define the simplification, clarity on which SMB segment you need to go after, as well as a geo going till the city level, and also the processes which include the co-funding and the co-sell. Awesome. So we'll do some rapid fire to know a little bit about your personal aspect also. Favorite city you have ever worked from?
There's so many good options. San Diego, I'm really partial. The weather's always amazing. My oldest was born there. So under pressure, I'm going to say San Diego.
Oh, what's something on your bucket list you haven't told many people?
So I do have a dream of one day being able to speak 6 languages.
Oh, wow.
I've lived in a couple different countries, and I've spoken at one point in my life Italian, French, Spanish, English. I've also studied Greek and Latin. So I'd love to continue learning. I think it's incredible to communicate with people in their native language.
Wow. What is a go-to activity for stress buster?
It's got to be working out. I think just going for a walk, especially if I can get outside, it's always better.
Oh, if you were not in this industry or the career, what it would be?
I love books. I've always loved reading. And in fact, when I started at Amazon, I started in Kindle publishing.
Right.
So I think I would be in the publishing industry.
Wow. The book or the podcast? What interests you more?
Book.
What was the last book that you read and any learning from that you use in your daily life?
Well, look, I am a huge fan of Project Hail Mary.
Okay.
And I read it many years ago, but I just saw the movie. And it was great to, first of all, I think they did a great job with the movie. And it was incredible to relive that, but it was just really fun to revisit the story. I love that one. Also, The Martian, same
Wow.
author, Andy Weir. And so I love his books.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting. What keeps you awake in the night?
My kids. I have a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old, and an 8-year-old. So they're
Oh.
often up. If one's not up, the other one's up. And then we have 2 dogs, and so sometimes they're up. So
Oh.
there's a lot of noise.
How will you explain your role to an 8-year-old kid?
Oh, goodness. Well, we talk about the internet and just how content can be shared on the internet is really probably the level we're at. But she's already learning coding at school, and she's
Wow.
already aware of AI. She's used Claude and ChatGPT. So increasingly, I mean, she's actually getting hands-on. There's not as much explanation even needed.
Wow. Thank you so much for the rapid fire, Kristine.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Zinnov Podcast. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or any of your favorite streaming platforms.